The City of Phoenix holds community budget hearings throughout April, allowing residents to comment and make suggestions on the city manager's trial budget before final decisions are made. This public discussion is among the reasons the city's budget so closely matches the community's highest priorities each fiscal year.
Good evening to you. We'll ask if you take your seats. Good evening. My name is Milton Dahoney. I'm the Assistant City Manager for the City of Phoenix, and I'll be helping facilitate this evening's budget hearing. Before I go any further, we do have an interpreter here who is seated over here, Letitia. She doesn't have a microphone, but if anyone needs her to sit with you to interpret as we're going along, she's willing to do that. This is one of 14 budget hearings that we're having around the city. In fact, tonight we're having 3 of these sessions. So we're scattered out pretty much across the city. There are a number of city departments represented here this evening. There is a representative from Councilwoman Thelda Williams' office here this evening. And we're very fortunate to be joined by Councilman Daniel Valenzuela this evening. So before I go any further about logistics, I want to give him an opportunity to make some opening comments.
Thank you, Milton. Thank you so much, Milton. Milton, our assistant city manager, we're so fortunate to have Milton here. I do want to also give Milton a lot of credit. Now, obviously, we have a really great city manager and city staff, many of which are here with us. We have our police officers and firefighters here. We have people from human services, and the list goes on and on. I do want to mention immediately that we do have a member of the mayor's office here, Grady, who is here, and Patrick Ziegert, who's going to be joining us at the table here, representing Councilwoman Williams' office. Councilwoman Williams and I have been doing this together here for a long time. In fact, she was doing it, way before I took office 4 years ago. You're going to note, it's a very complex budget. Last year, we were facing a deficit, the forecast for this year, of about $40 million. We're actually looking at a surplus, one-time funding of about 40 to 50 million, 60 million, and a lot of that was on this man. I mean, that was your responsibility to continue bringing this stuff back to the council to help us get into an area where we're coming from a position of strength. So thank you for your leadership, Milton. I want to thank our neighborhood leaders. We have a lot of work to do in this particular community. This is Phoenix District 5. We've been working on the VIP, and I'm very, very careful when I report things like this because I realize that we have a lot of work to do. But because of your efforts, and I'm talking to our neighborhood leaders, because of your efforts and the efforts of our nonprofits, of our clergy, our business leaders, business coalition, crime rates are actually down. Again, I'm very careful as I report this because we have a lot more work to do. Crime rates are down, according to the Cactus Park Precinct, in this area by about 30%. And that is because that is absolutely because of, first and foremost, the neighborhood leaders that we have in this particular community. Milton mentioned 14 budget hearings in the city of Phoenix. I made a commitment to our district that we would continue to work as hard as we can to have as many budget hearings as we can in this particular district that goes from 7th Avenue to about 120th Avenue every single year. So of the 14, we actually have, remember there are 8 council districts. We have 3 of those budget hearings in this particular district and 2 that are just outside of the district that we'll be participating in as well. So it means a lot for us to have your fingerprints on this particular budget. It is a complex budget, and thank you so much for taking the time from your busy schedules to advocate on behalf of your family and our neighbors and our city. So again, thank you for being here. God bless you. I'll hand it over to Milton so we can hear the logistics and get this thing going.
Thank you, Councilman. So when you came in, you could have, I hope you picked up one of the budget tabloids. They're printed in both English and Spanish up here to my right. The first thing we'll do, we're going to watch a video that gives sort of an overview of our budget situation. This is, as the councilman said, a pretty complex budget season because it's one of those times where not only are we dealing with the budget, we're dealing with contract negotiations for our 7 labor groups at the same time. It's also a point in time where we have to deal with our debt service and property tax, and all is coming into play at the same point in time. That's not always the case, but it is this year. So after we watch the video, those people who would like to give comment this evening, we ask you to fill out a comment card, and then we will call on you to come up. We need you to come to the mic to give your comments because this is being taped and will be shown on Phoenix 11 as well as available on YouTube. So anyone who would like, we need you to fill out a card and give your comments at the mic so we can pick that up. With that, we'll go ahead and show the video. We'll give a few more logistics after it's over, and then we'll get right into the comment card. So away with the film.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to your first look at the City of Phoenix 2016-17 City Manager's Trial Budget.
Input from our residents is very important as your ideas can help shape what will end up being the final budget for the next fiscal year.
The final budget is important because it provides the plan for how the city will spend taxpayer money and how services that you depend on could be impacted.
I think the city manager's trial budget provides a great pathway for us to continue providing the outstanding services that Phoenix residents expect, and it gives employees the opportunity to continue to provide that great service every day.
Why is a balanced budget important? It's required by state law and city charter. In this trial budget, there is a $60 million surplus that can be used to improve essential services that will benefit the community. Examples include public safety needs, employee compensation, and restoration of some programs and services. So how does the funding work? Funding for the city budget comes from 3 sources: the general fund, enterprise funds, and special revenue funds. Examples of general fund city departments include police, fire, the library, parks and recreation, and streets. Enterprise fund departments include aviation, water services, solid waste services, and the convention center. Special revenue funds account for designated sources of money for a specific purpose, like sales tax dollars for the hiring of police officers and firefighters, and funds for public transit.
So how did we get here? Under the leadership of the mayor and city council, we are glad to say the budget is balanced.
The mayor and city council have really set the tone and direction for our city staff and employees to be focused on innovation and efficiency.
Here's just some of the ways that happened. First, eliminating 119 vacant positions and other administrative savings actions that will result in an overall savings of just over $11 million. Second, there is a one-time carryover of $25 million from last year's surplus. Also, the city is saving by making needed adjustments to the workers' compensation fund and has sold extra police helicopters that were too expensive to maintain. Did you know that Phoenix has reduced administrative expenses and has the smallest number of employees per capita in over 40 years? And while still providing great services, the city has reduced authorized staffing levels by more than 2,700 positions. That is 16% since 2007. Also, city staff is constantly finding innovative ways to save money. Did you know that since 2010, we have saved $106 million in taxpayer funding? Some examples: the municipal court. It saved almost $600,000 by eliminating a criminal courtroom and a civil courtroom due to lower court volume. Plus, a new process with copy services. By reducing the number of printers and copiers citywide and securing more competitive rates with copy contracts, the city should save hundreds of thousands of dollars each year. Now to rising pension costs, which continue to be an important issue. Thanks to the leadership of the mayor and city council and actions taken by voters, the savings from reform efforts will reach $1.1 billion over a 23-year period. And what a difference a year makes. Last year's 5-year forecast projected a deficit of up to $58 million. But with guidance from the mayor and council and the efficient work of city staff, that deficit was eliminated without reducing services to the community.
Mayor and council also expect us to provide great service, and that's what the city employees work to do every day.
One of the biggest challenges the city faces has to do with how the city will continue to make its debt payments for voter-approved capital projects.
We're in a place where we need to make tough choices. Like any of us during the recession, where you may have lost a job or your wife may have lost their job and your income changed and your bill stayed the same. So the city of Phoenix is at that point now.
Several options will be discussed, including increasing Phoenix's combined property tax rate. Phoenix has had the same rate for 20 years. That means since 1995, residents have paid $1.82 per $100 of assessed value for property tax. The rate has gone unchanged while the city's population grew and important services developed, like new fire stations, parks, and libraries. The city has been using a reserved fund to help pay off that debt. This has relieved homeowners from increases in property tax rates, especially during the recession.
What other cities in the valley, after the recession, they started to, when their assessed valuation changed, the values of their properties changed, they started to float their rate up and down so that they levied the same amount of money, brought in the same amount of income. What the city of Phoenix did, we thought that we would give our taxpayers relief. So we kept the rate at $1.82.
In the meantime, the city had debt to pay, so a reserve fund was used. This relieved homeowners from increases in property tax rates, especially during the recession. But now that well of backup money is finally running dry, and the city needs to raise an additional $37 million to pay the debt service. Otherwise, Phoenix's strong credit rating could take a hit.
We are taking in less money, and now we still have the same payments. Our payment on our mortgage is essentially our debt service. That's what we have to continue making. At the same time, we have other sources or other services that we provide. Those costs have also increased, and our ability to make those payments has gotten tougher and tougher.
The budget lays out 5 ways to solve this. A detailed explanation of these options are in the trial budget summary booklet, handed out at all public meetings and online at phoenix.gov/budget. Option number 1. Increase the combined property tax rate by 35 cents to $2.17. This would equal an additional $4.25 per month on an average single-family home, about 14 cents a day. Even at this rate, the average single-family homeowner will still be paying less than they did back in 2009.
We could continue to provide services, infrastructure, pay our debt at the lowest, cheapest possible cost, and maintain a very strong bond rating, and to provide our citizens with good services for many years to come.
Option number 2, generate $37 million in other ways by increasing a local sales tax, a food tax, or perhaps an addition to your city services bill. Option number 3, use all of the $60 million surplus to provide property tax relief for 2 years. That means no money would be available to restore employee concessions or add community services, including those cut in previous years. Now keep in mind, with this option, the city would still need to find a solution to this problem in 2 years, and this could hurt the city's strong credit rating. Option number 4, use some of the surplus money to provide tax relief for 1 more year, along with some of our reserve funds. But the issue will have to be addressed again next year. Now with this option, the city could approve some proposed services, but not all. And this option could hurt the city's strong credit rating.
Some of these other options are short-term, which means they're only going to provide a solution for 1 year, maybe 2 years. And it really is just kicking the can down the road, and we will be back in this situation in a couple of years asking for a solution from our citizens.
Option number 5, cut $37 million from the general fund by making significant cuts that would directly affect the city's ability to serve residents and business owners. The city manager has outlined $44 million in services from which to choose. This includes cutting $14 million from the police department, $10 million from the fire department, more than $2 million in library services, and $6 million from the city's Parks and Recreation Department. In a service business like the city, dollars translate into the people who provide the services, like 911 response, recreation programs, senior and youth services, and more.
Since 2010, we've been drawing down our fund balance reserve for our GO bonds, and we're at the end of that. So this is the last year that we can use that reserve to pay our debt service.
How will the city tackle this debt service situation for the long term? The plan is to refund and restructure bonds as long as rates remain where they are now. Until then, one of the mentioned 5 options must happen in order to pay the city's debt service for the facilities we've built. This is critical in order to keep the city's strong credit rating, which lets the city borrow money at a low interest rate to fund projects that are important to you. A look at these 5 options are on page 5 of your trial budget summary booklet.
Here's a look at the new services proposed in the trial budget. Many residents feel that protecting the public should be the city's top priority. The mayor and council agree it's critically important to keep everyone safe. That's why public safety and criminal justice amounts to 72% of the general fund in this trial budget. The new budget adds $2.4 million for the first year of a 3-year, $11 million plan for Phoenix police officers to start using body cameras.
Well, body cameras mean a lot of things. Safety is one of them, transparency is one of them, trust is another thing. For our residents, it allows them to have greater confidence in their police department.
The budget would also allow the department to hire a director of employee assistance and wellness.
Our employees are our most valuable asset. We need to make sure we take care of our employees. By hiring this position, it allows us to do that.
Now to the fire department. The budget would spend $2.8 million in one-time costs to replace the obsolete Emergency Transportation Billing System, known as EPCR.
We are the last large city in the state of Arizona to move forward with EPCR.
Electronic records will let our paramedics spend more time on patient care and less time on paperwork, and make payments from insurance carriers more efficient.
The latest technology for us to do our jobs more efficiently, protect the information of the community, bill efficiently so the taxpayers are getting revenue back into the pockets in order to provide services to the city of Phoenix.
The budget also calls for spending $1 million to begin rebuilding the road to North Mountain, along with fixing the radio tower to make it meet industry standards. The radio tower is critical to the city's public safety radio system. Now, to dedicated public safety special revenue funds. Because these funds will be balanced next year, the budget includes the hiring of 130 police officers in 2016-2017.
Other than 2015, we hadn't hired any police officers for almost 6 years.
The council also approved a plan to hire 36 firefighters next fiscal year.
We have been fortunate over the last couple of years to be able to hire minimal amounts of firefighters. This will allow us to fill all of our vacancies.
Now, let's look at dedicated Phoenix Parks and Preserves initiative funds. Money would be used to maintain new dog parks, recreation centers, and playing fields. From the Development Services Fund, which is paid for by building permit and inspection fees, is this proposal. The city is seeing a huge spike in construction, which is great news. To keep up with demand, the budget calls for adding 8 new positions to meet the needs of all the growth. Out of the Solid Waste Special Enterprise Funds, the trial budget calls for adding 15 positions and equipment needed to support curbside green organics, diversion, and illegal dumping programs. This will ensure that Phoenix continues to be a national leader in keeping waste out of city landfills. The budget calls for a few additions that directly will help the members of our community. They include new funding to support the city's continued effort to get veterans off the streets and back on their feet.
So the proposed funding will support peer navigators who help veterans living on the street make all the connections they need to make to get into housing and stay housed.
And money to add staff and supplies for after-school programs for disengaged youth.
This funding would really allow us to increase our programming by offering STEM programs, physical activities, as well as interaction between the youth and adults in many of our city parks.
Looking ahead, one of the biggest challenges to the general fund continues to be the cost of employee pensions. The trial budget reflects an increase of $15 million in civilian employee pension costs. But since the mayor and city council took action on pension reform and the voters made their voices heard, these short-term increases will slow over time with a savings of more than $1 billion over the next 2 decades. Now to the police and fire pensions, which will go up $21 million. This is the result of a state Supreme Court decision. Increases in future years are partly because of other pending court challenges and system funding issues. Also, proposed reforms could help reduce how much the city will pay in the future. Then there's employee compensation. For 6 years, city employees have been part of the shared solution of our budget issues, agreeing to almost 6% in cuts to compensation. 4.2% of that is still in effect. The trial budget proposes to responsibly restore some of it, 2.6%, or $44 million, over the next 2 years. This is an investment in our most valuable resource, the workers. As a service business, the city depends on good workers to provide outstanding services. Keep in mind, the budget hasn't been adopted just yet. Your input is important, and the City of Phoenix wants to hear from you on what the upcoming budget should look like.
The budget is really for the people of Phoenix, and so for it to be the best budget possible, it needs to reflect what people have to tell us, and that's why we're out to listen to the residents in the trial budget.
In summary, the trial budget has several options, including solving the debt service issue by raising the combined property tax by 35 cents to $2.17. This would allow the city to use surplus money to add critical services to our police, fire, and other city departments. It would also allow the city to restore some concessions made by city workers 6 years ago.
15 public hearings will take place this month across all council districts, and you are encouraged to attend. Make sure you pick up a budget pamphlet outlining all of the proposals and options at any of the public meetings or online at phoenix.gov/budget. You can also send your comments or questions to budget.research@phoenix.gov, or to reach us by phone, call 602-262-4800. You can also comment on social media by using #PhoenixBudget. Thank you for attending this budget hearing and being part of a very important process. The City of Phoenix is committed to its mission of improving the quality of life in Phoenix through the efficient delivery of outstanding public services.
All right. Can y'all, is this on? Can you guys hear me okay? All right, real quick, what I want to do is just acknowledge Mallory Hutchison and Eva Masdiego, both of whom are in the District 5 office. And could you all indulge me? We have so many city employees in here. Can we just give them a round of applause? I've learned to make this announcement quite a bit. I'm fairly paperless. I take all my notes off my phone, which makes me as efficient as I possibly am. But I mention that because I never want you to think that I'm playing Tetris or Facebooking or whatever. So just keep that in mind. That's what I'm doing with this. I'll go ahead and hand it over to our Assistant City Manager, Milton Mahoney, to proceed with the comments.
So each person that speaks, again, we ask you to come to the microphone. You will have 2 minutes to make your comments, and then we'll move on. So our first speaker is Rick Lodi.
Lodi.
No, I didn't want to speak. I just left a card. Okay. So his card, restore pool concessions for city employees. Next is Dan Dahl. Not wishing to speak. Same message, restore employees' compensation and increase the property tax to do so. Number 3, Gene Blue does wish to speak, so Gene, come on down.
Thank you.
You have 2 minutes, sir.
I may not need 2 minutes, but thank you very much, Councilman Valenzuela, to the other city council staff who are present. Is
Mr.
this
Blue's
on?
mic on? I don't think it is.
I don't hear myself, so I don't know.
There we go. Sounds better.
Got it. Now, don't take that off my 2 minutes.
You have 2 minutes from right now.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Councilman Valenzuela, other city council members, staff who are present, to our assistant city manager, Mr. Mahoney, citizens of this great city of ours, Phoenix, Arizona. Initially, please accept my thanks for the work that has been done so far in preparing this trial budget. It is quite evident to me and to, I'm sure, anyone who has picked up a packet that the number of hours that went into the various analysis, research, and presentation of this document were truly worth the time spent. And I appreciate the opportunity for our community residents to provide input into this process. I believe that the revenue option 1 provides the most agreeable course of action at this time. Same inculcates the necessary actions to enhance our public safety and take steps to restore the employee concessions in wages and fringes which they have given up over the past 2 years. This option includes a tax increase of 35 cents, which I support, and as a homeowner, I'll have to pay. As has been previously stated, we all have to pay something and to contribute something. In this mode of everyone helping, I respectfully ask that you resharpen the pencil and look for resources to provide necessary assistance to our youth. There's a glaring discrepancy or lack of youth services, and no place is this more noted or needed than in our deliberate efforts to fund and operate meaningful summer youth programs. Many of our current city staff and several of our city council members benefited from participating in past summer youth projects. And let me be clear, I'm not speaking of just the federal or other imposed activities that have a restriction where you can only serve 16 to 24. We currently, at our agency and other CBOs, have for the past 3 to 4 years had several hundred youth who are aged 13 to 15. They are seeking meaningful work experience. Empirical data indicates that these young people can, will, and want to work and not be idle during the summer. We owe it to them, our leaders of tomorrow, and voters of tomorrow, to make the resources available for them to contribute constructively to the growth and progress of our city. Option 1, yes. Public safety, yes.
Mr. Blue, your time's up.
Viable public transportation and the other areas in option 1, yes. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Blue.
Thank you, sir.
Don't turn it off.
Next is Gene, is it
Deary.
Deary? Gene Deary? Yes, sir.
Well, folks, I just wanted you to know I came all the way from 103rd Avenue in Indian School, and I understand the councilman and other members of this group will be in my neighborhood next Tuesday. I agree with the previous gentleman about option 1, because option 2 you probably have pitchforks and bonfires down at City Hall. As you remember, in 2008, we had that 2% emergency food tax, and nobody liked it. We all understood it. In fact, I think I was quoted by Arizona Republic at the time that we are citizens of Phoenix are willing to pay for the quality of life that we have and that we wish to have, and the opportunities to people that this city and these citizens have always asked for. Personal safety, transportation, transit, libraries, after-school programs. Doesn't matter what neighborhood they're in. Some things, a lot of the stuff doesn't happen in my neighborhood. Some of it does. But I don't have a problem paying $4.25, an increase like that for someone in Ahwatukee to have their kid go to an after-school program, or in Levine, or in Maryvale, or even perchance up in District 2 or even in District 1. So I have no problem with the idea of increasing and going with option 1, because again, it's opportunity for all. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Richard Rea. And following him will be Craig Tripkin.
For the past 6 years, we've been dealing with issues that were confronting the city of Phoenix, and we've all suffered. We all know what the things are that couldn't be done. We've watched the deterioration, not because the people in the city that work for the city haven't tried. They've done everything they can. They've just been forced to deal with much less money, far fewer people, and as a result, there are things that have not been taken care of. One of the things that you look at, and you've got a multiplicity of budget issues here with the 3 different types, anywhere from $3.3 billion down to $1.2 billion, but we need to raise the taxes so that we don't lose the bond rating, so that we can restore what was promised and was given up by the citizens, and workers for the city of Phoenix, so that we can get them back to the place they need to be. It is no reason to wait, and there is no reason to not have the tax increase that should have taken place. More importantly, if we don't do it now, we're going to have this problem again and again and again. And there's a continued effort on some people's part to try to say, well, it's not right, but it is right. And the whole thing is that you will hear at from time to time people saying, well, we have more money now than we ever had. Yes, that's true. But what isn't true in that statement is the fact that we have far more in expenses, in debt service, and in interest that we have to pay. When we have far more in the way of streets, water, 53,000 fire hydrants, you name it, it's there, and it all comes in there, and we now need to start paying for these things. There's been an attempt, and it's been effective to stop paying these things for a while, but now's the time that we have to. It's not a choice, it's something that we have to do. So I certainly encourage, Mr. Deary said, that we would go with option 1 for the reasons he said, and that we continue going forward, and hopefully City Council will hear that and be able to vote effectively for what we need to do. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Tripkin. Former Councilman Tripkin.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I'm here to speak on behalf of people who are utterly disenfranchised, which is homeless people. I support option 1 strongly. Anything other than option 1, options 3, 4, and 5 will mean serious cuts to homeless services in the valley. In particular, CAS, the regional homeless shelter, that has been cut from 2007, 2008, when we were receiving $921,000, to this year, which was $741,000, a 20% cut, in spite of some of the restorations that have gone with the Great Recession, coming back from the Great Recession. CAS continues to be, frankly, cut to the bone. And I think everybody with eyes knows that the homeless problem is apparently getting worse in this city. We see it at the intersections, we see it throughout the city. And we took care of 4,700 unduplicated individuals last year, 62% of whom left after 3 weeks for a better life. So it's a true emergency shelter in purest sense. If we continue to cut homeless services, we will pay the price at increased emergency room services. We have EMTs on the campus now. We've cut campus calls from the fire department to 75% over where they were. We'll see it in increased police calls. I'd wager that a significant amount of police calls are dealing with transient people, and the same thing with fire department calls, and a whole array of other services that we deal with in the city of Phoenix. So I think it's money well spent, and I thank you very much for your consideration.
Thank you.
Thanks, Councilman.
Submitting a card but not wishing to speak, Connie Cabot. Her comments, why aren't we looking for ways to become more efficient rather than to raise taxes so that we can raise spending? Our next speaker is Scott Kalkbrenner, and he will be followed by Sue Soto.
Hi, my name is Scott Kalkbrenner. I'm a City of Phoenix firefighter, and I don't know. I just want to speak to you guys from my own personal perspective and that of my family. I can't speak for the whole entire fire department or every city employee, but anything past that option one, I think, is going to be a bad deal. And I'm happy to be a citizen of this community, and I'm happy to pay taxes to see things improved. And I'm a firefighter. I could be a firefighter probably anywhere. But I do it in the city of Phoenix because I love to work for this city. And one of the things that I love about the city of Phoenix, and I have just a little bit of time, so I'm only going to cite one of them, is that we operate out of a system of values, of core values. And one of those values is integrity. So when the folks that run my city come to me as an employee and say, hey, we need you to take one for the team, we need to cut your pay, but we'll get it back to you in X amount of time, I'm all in for that. I'm okay with that because we operate with integrity here, and I know that the promise is going to be kept. So what I'd like to say is that I would like to see this budget go back to the drawing board, and I would like to see some sort of solution that restores all the concessions that the city employees have made in the last 6 years. And I think that can be done. And if it means paying a little more tax, personally, I'm okay with that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Sue Soto, and I'm speaking on behalf of Friends of the Phoenix Public Library. First, I want to thank council and management for your hard work on this budget. I support the decision to increase library funding. The addition of e-materials, which are available to the public 24/7, is both helpful and welcome. However, libraries today serve as community centers where residents go to access resources such as computers, employment assistance, story time, summer reading programs for all ages, literacy screenings, college access workshops, and tools for small business owners. These programs and services are what make our library system one of the best and most important assets in the nation's 6th largest city. With half of our libraries closed 2 days every week, our library department is unable to routinely offer these essential literacy resources in person to residents. Cholla Library in District 1 and Palo Verde Library in District 5 are both closed on Fridays. Yucca Library in District 5 is closed 2 days in a row on Sundays and Mondays. I encourage you to work with the community towards the goal of opening all of Phoenix's 17 public libraries every single day as they were before. Significant cuts were made. In the meantime, I thank you for the proposed increase to library materials.
Thank you. Not wishing to speak, but in support of more library hours is Dorothy Weingartner. Our next speaker is Jeff Spellman.
Good evening, councilmen and city staff and members of the public. My name is Jeff Spellman from the Arizona Parks and Recreation Fellowship. Our 501c3 charitable organization enjoys a three-way public-private partnership with the City of Phoenix and the Camp Collie Foundation to support Camp Collie, the city-owned camp near Payson for Phoenix youth with significant life challenges. Camp Collie manifests the dream of Jim Collie, the revered late director of the Phoenix Parks and Rec Department, to help at-risk young people through supervised wilderness experiences, learn to make good decisions, develop self-confidence and resilience, and build healthy relationships. Activities include backpacking, canoeing, mountain biking, horseback riding, stargazing, and wildlife observation. The camp also offers work experience for disconnected older teens to support their growth into responsible, employed adults through ACYR and the Arizona at Work program. The Camp Collie Foundation was established at the request of the city to raise money to support capital development and operations. The Arizona Parks and Rec Fellowship manages the camp. The city maintains the property, which we trust you will continue to do in the new fiscal year. Since the camp opened in 2000, the Camp Collie Foundation has provided more than $880,000 to help serve more than 4,800 youth. In 2015, the camp hosted 850 campers. We're also exceptionally proud of the Kathleen Kilfoyle Children of Fallen Officers Camp, where kids whose parents who have given the ultimate sacrifice come to heal through the wonders of nature and have a chance to just be kids. In 2005, journalist Richard Louv published a book called Last Child in the Woods. That book started a movement across the country to reconnect kids with nature. Long before Louv ever thought about writing this book, Jim Collie knew about the impact that nature has on kids, and that is why he fought so hard for the city to have this camp. This dream is being kept alive through the hard work of the Camp Collie Foundation and the Arizona Parks and Recreation Fellowship that operate the camp at no cost to the city. We respectfully request that you honor your commitment to fund the small maintenance budget for Camp Collie as part of your agreement with our nonprofits. Option 1 is a very small price to pay to maintain our city services, and we support that. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Not wishing to speak is Mary Obrochta.
Changed my mind.
Oh, you do wish to speak? Come on down. We're flexible here.
Thank you. Thank you for your flexibility. I actually only have a couple of questions. And the first one is, it was mentioned that we have the smallest number of employees per capita over the past 40 years. And can you tell me, how does that compare with other cities in the same comparable size?
I don't know that we can answer that question right here. Who's here from the budget department?
We can take a look at that.
Okay.
So we've got your contact information. We can get that answer to you.
Thank you. Question number 2, and it should be a little bit easier. Looking forward, with this option 1 tax increase, how long will that increase sustain our needs before we'll have to look at this again?
The projection is that it would sustain us for a period of years. I can't say exactly how many, but
maybe it wasn't such a
we're
question.
playing catch up. Essentially, is what we're doing. So the pool of funds that we were using to make the budget be balanced, we've spent that. So in order to maintain our credit rating where it is, and in order to pay our debt service, this ongoing $37 million will help us to do that. I can't say how many years before our situation might change, but several.
Okay. Even with that said, with the unknown, I just want to go on record that I do totally support option number 1.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, not wishing to speak, is Dennis Newport. And used to have a net gain in police officers, not fewer or the same after hiring new officers. That's his comment.
I can clarify that. A couple times I've heard that even after you hire new officers, you'll have more officers.
Sir, if you're gonna speak, you need to come to the mic. We have to tape this if you're gonna address the audience.
I have been told a couple times that you're going to have more officers retire than you're going to replace with new hires. And I would like to see a net gain in officers rather than a net loss.
Yes, sir.
And there's one other question. The tax is going to go up 19% roughly. So that would indicate that expenses have gone up 19% faster than property values. I was just wondering what happened. I mean, why? Just the property values lag behind, or?
So on the expense side, what is really our issue is pension cost. That's where the giant hike has come in. And that has happened year after year after year. And the pension costs are outpacing the increase in revenue that we're getting. But by the same token, our debt service, we've been paying for, in simple language, out of a savings account. And that savings account has now been spent.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you for bringing the point up, and yet we've all known that pensions have been probably the biggest fiscal issue we have, certainly in the city, probably any city in the valley, in the state, and probably even the country. And something that we have done in 2013, you remember because many of the people in this room voted for it, it won overwhelmingly. We reformed the pension system for the City of Phoenix employees. And so according to the video that we started with, that will save $1.1 billion over the course of 2 decades. We have 2 different pension systems, so there's that. We did the right thing there. And thank you for leading the way on that. The other thing, the public safety pension system, those are our police officers and firefighters. That's at the state level. And that is what you're starting to see these signs out here, Prop 124, Proposition 124. That will save, if it passes, that will save taxpayers $1.5 billion. So we're dealing with these pension costs and these budgets and next year's budget and so on and so forth. But, you know, the deficit that we had just last year for the city of Phoenix, that would have been $5 million deeper had you not passed the COPERS pension reform in 2013. So we're moving in the right direction. Frankly, I'm on record in saying that I would hope that Proposition 124 passes on May 17th for the public safety pension system, and that we'll start to see those same gains there as well. That'll put us in the right direction. Thank you.
Is it warm in here?
A little bit.
Good, I thought it was just me. Next speaker is Michael Newport, followed by Regina Nixon.
I have 2 issues. The first is 130 additional police is good, and I would support the option 1 partially for that reason. But I hope that's not the end of additional police, because as I understand it, there is a substantial reduction of the police force as a result of the Great Recession, and we need to build back up. The reason we have the Violence Impact Project along 27th Avenue is partly because we had fewer police, and we need more police. If you don't increase the police force, when this project ends, things will return to where they were before. My second comment deals with one similar to the gentleman that was talking about homeless people. We need public service announcements. There are many people on the streets, so-called homeless, who are begging and getting money from people that drive by, When they give that money, they're enabling these people to remain homeless, enabling them to be drug abusers and drunks and cause problems in the neighborhood. People that give the money all feel as though they're doing some good work. It's important that they be told that they're not doing good work. They're actually making it easier for these people to remain in their condition on the streets. They'd be more open to being helped to be removed from the streets and put into the standard society. So I'd like to see the city budget money for public service announcements to tell people not to give money to beggars on the streets. And I'd like to see the city, not only for this year, but going into the future, plan on increasing the number of police in our police department. Thank you for my time.
Thank you, sir. Regina Nixon, and she will be followed by Emma Jean Dolan.
Good afternoon, and thank you, Councilman Valenzuela, and my regards to Councilwoman William. Thanks you for being here on her behalf. My name is Regina Nixon, and I'm the director for the Phoenix Conservatory of Music. But more than that, I'm an arts advocate, an arts lover, a patron of the arts, and a parent, and really supportive of our youth. So today I'm here to advocate on behalf of arts and culture in the Phoenix area. So the arts are really fundamental to our way of life from cradle to grave. They inspire us, they foster creativity, collaboration, and they enhance the daily quality of our lives, whether that's by providing employment opportunities, public service, creating an economic impact, or providing arts learning experiences for our youth and our adults, from STEAM-based learning efforts, creative aging, and professional development for our artists. This last year, the Phoenix Office of Arts and Culture and its grantees had over 35,000 employees in that industry alone. We have served over 4 million people that have attended events in the last year, and nearly 1 million, that's 1 million youth, attended events provided by grantees of the Phoenix Office of Arts and Culture in just the last year. In District 5, there are 5 organizations that are funded through the Phoenix Office of Arts and Culture, including PSA Art Awakenings and the Matsuri Festival. And in District 1 is our organization, Phoenix Conservatory of Music, where we provide quality music education to thousands of young people every year that's affordable and accessible. So we support, as arts advocates, we support the city manager's trial budget recommendation of an increase in revenue to create a surplus rather than a deficit. We support the city manager's proposal to partially restore the previously made cuts to arts and culture in the amount of $50,000. This would bring us up to a current allocation of $730,000, but our goal is not yet met. Eventually, we would like to get to that $1 per capita, or $1.5 million in funding awarded every year. We have some concerns about the cuts that are proposed for the cultural facilities management and property management services. These are negative to the cornerstones of our arts and culture institutions, like the Art Museum, the theater, and the Children's Museum, and are really important that we maintain that level of funding. And then last week, I don't know if y'all knew this, I didn't know this before I started getting educated, there are over 180 public artworks in the city of Phoenix. It costs about $100,000 a year to maintain them and restore them to make sure that they are in good operating order. And currently, the budget only allocates $49,000 from the general fund. And so we would like to see an increase in maintenance for those public works. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Dolan? Okay. All right, thank you. Not wishing to speak is Troy Caskey. Restore concessions for public employees. Thank you. Also not wishing to speak is Russ Kirk. Restore firefighter pay and benefits by 4.2%. Will Bubadas.
Hello, everybody. My name is Will Buvidas. I'm a police officer. I'm also the treasurer of the Phoenix Law Enforcement Association. I have the great honor of representing the men and women of the Phoenix Police Department. And I'm also a proud resident of the city of Phoenix. I'm a proud resident of South Phoenix. I send my kids to public schools in Fowler Elementary School District. I consider myself very invested in this community. And one thing we need to do is keep our promises. The police officers, the firefighters, and quite frankly, all city employees deserve to have their concessions restored immediately. Everybody sacrificed when the city was going through the problems in 2010. We were promised them back in 2 years. 2 years later, we were promised them back in 2 years. And then 2 years after that, we were promised them back. Now, 6 years later, we still don't have our concessions back. The concessions that all the city employees sacrifice in order to keep providing those valuable services to everybody in this room. Another thing, too, is we're looking to hire a bunch of police officers. And I do believe that number, Councilman Valenzuela, the 130 is additional police officers, including, there'll also be replacements for those retiring, correct? That's to get us back up closer to that 3125 number in the next few years. So that number, to answer your question, includes replacing the people retiring plus adding 130 additional officers out of the public safety funds. But in order to recruit those officers, we got to pay competitively. You know, since we started hiring last year, I've had a bunch of people call me up. I talked to my friends that work in surrounding cities, and I go, hey, we're hiring now. Come put in for Phoenix. We could use, you know, officers with experience to come in here. They could hit the ground running, don't put in the academy. And they say, heck no. They say, hey, you guys have taken concessions for 6 years. You have some on the council who don't seem to support you. And this year you guys are taking unpaid holidays, working holidays, not getting paid for it. Why would I come there when I can work for Glendale, which is getting a 5% raise July 1st, or Tempe, which is getting a 5% raise July 1st, or Mesa, which is getting a 3% raise July 1st. Why would I come to Phoenix where I still have concessions? So it's a big problem. The property tax needs to be taken care of. What hasn't been spoken about the property tax is this problem should have been addressed in 2010. In 2010, the debt services, the amount of property tax did not meet the required debt. So what the city did basically is say, hey, we're just going to take from our savings accounts for 5 years, and now it's in a crisis mode. They would have just raised the property tax up a little bit each year to cover that. We would not be in the situation today where we're pitting services, we're pitting employee concessions, and we're pitting taxes all against each other. It's really a shame that it's had to come to this point. But again, we support restoring the concessions for all city employees. We think that's fair, and continue to provide those vital services to everybody in this room. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Toby Sexton. Followed by Lori Fitzhugh. Mr. Sexton.
Yes, hi. I usually don't speak, but I'm a trustee for the Phoenix Law Enforcement Association. I've been an officer here in this precinct for 25 years. I still work the street. I work this neighborhood exactly, and I can tell you we've taken a lot of concessions, and they need to be restored to 4.2% at least, at the minimum. The homeless issue, I understand what you're saying because they're everywhere, and we don't know how to deal with them that much because we don't have the resources to deal with them. The squads right now, I work 6 days a week right now, and I usually get 1 day off a week because we're having to come in here and work a lot of overtime shifts just to cover the staffing. Staffing is at minimum. I'm talking minimum. It's the lowest I've ever seen it. I've been here for 25 years, since 1991. I've worked here. And I can tell you I have a squad that only has one person assigned to it. So we have to fill that with different people. It's not people who are invested in the beat. It's people who just come in and fill spots and they leave, and then we'd be gone for 6, 8 weeks. Whenever they come back, they work it again, but they don't work the beat. I work the beat, but I mean, my squad usually has maybe 5, 6 people on it every day. I worked this morning, and I'll be back this Friday to work an afternoon shift. But we need more staffing. We need more officers. That $11 million that they want to put for the body cameras, that's not going to put officers on the street. It's not going to get officers coming to your house. It's just going to put cameras on us. That's probably something that you need to put aside until we get staffing levels. And that's all I got to say right now.
Thank you. Lori Fitzhugh, and next would be Sherry Dudek.
Good evening. My name is Laurie Fitzhugh, and I'm a native Phoenician, and I'm a Block Watch volunteer. I've made a comment of this nature before, But the document we have before us does not provide me the information to understand the critical information that's in the content. And the example is when they're talking about cutting an employee position in a department, I have no orientation to if that's one of 2, 1 of 20, or 1 of 200. And I really think that format could provide us more information, which we need. So my question is, all the backup data on all these 3 revenue streams and expenses is readily available online, yes?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. A gentleman had a question. We're proposing to raise property taxes to a level that would still be under 2009, but if you remember, that was near still the rolling peak of the housing crisis and overvalued properties because of all the monkey business going on in the mortgage industry. So I'm all right with the property tax, but not at the rate they're proposing, because I have had to do some deep digging because of a bill that would impact the property taxes in the Alhambra Elementary School District that's out at the legislature. And what I've learned is of the properties still underwater nationwide, that more than 50% of the properties that are underwater are of low-income homeowners. And I was somewhat shocked about that. So when we look at increasing property taxes, I'm thinking of the neighbors I live with and the people in my community and how this might ultimately impact their budget, because we're looking in the Alhambra district at actually 2 possible increases that will show up on our property tax bill. I support, hands down, what was said about restoring the pauses on increases to employees at the City of Phoenix, all city employees, including public safety. I'm a little concerned in general terms about, I've spent some time looking back over the last 20 years of when it was they stopped doing routine maintenance on streets and street maintenance. It was during Mayor Ramses. He decided it would be complaint driven. And as a native Phoenician, I've never seen our street surface conditions in the condition they are in now. They are wretched and horrible, and they are eating up our tires and the suspension on our vehicles. And they are, in many cases, a real hazard to anybody that rides a motorcycle-styled vehicle. And we never went back to routine maintenance. And this is, my biggest concern is, as we look at quality of life for the citizens, it can't just be the people downtown. We're a 500 square mile plus city, and I'm concerned about basics that have been neglected for years and years and years. And so at this time, we're being asked to endorse a proposal to increase our property tax, and based on what is in this document, I think most reasonable people would support it, because they want these services to remain intact. However, I am deeply concerned that we continue year after year to back away from what I call basics, old school, the basics. And I'm not seeing those being priorities throughout the city consistently for neighborhoods, regardless of your economic position. I'm not seeing that, and it's really breaking my heart badly. So I'm going to dig further into documents, and in the future, I think this document could provide us more relevant information. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Sherry Dudek, and followed by Benjamin Santillan.
Hi, I'm Sherry Dudek, longtime resident of Phoenix. My number one thing every year when I come is to tell you safety comes first. Police, fire, and the support teams for those, for our quality of life, which includes neighborhood services, which includes graffiti, which includes all the things that our citizens need to have a good quality of life, including senior centers, parks, recs, everything, okay? We want businesses to come here. We want people to build. We want people to be involved. But when they come, we've got to stop giving so many tax breaks to so many businesses and companies. We're trying to lure them in, and they're coming, and then people come, and then we don't have the services or the support for those services that we need. So we have to really look at that and how we prioritize. Is it really worth, in the long run, giving these special privileges to certain companies? We must continue to keep working on efficiency. I think you've done a marvelous job over the last few years of looking at ways to save money for the city, but we have to keep looking. We know that there's more there, and we have to keep doing that. We can't afford to cut any services because we are already cut to the bone. And if we cut services, we're going to hurt the people, the communities, the people who are out here living every single day. So that has to be the number one priority. I agree with Lori. We need more information in your reports, in your budget reports. When I look and see you're putting one position and then you have figures out to the side, and this was something that came up in other budget hearings. Oh, this position is worth this much money, but you do not explain that. That also includes benefits, insurance. Sometimes you have to give us more information to understand what information it is you are providing us with. So you might need to look at how that is formatted. I am willing to pay more taxes, so I do support option one, because I feel as a community we cannot afford any cuts. I mean, we're already, crunched. And I want you to continue working on everything, and thank you so much for having these kind of hearings where we can come out and let you know how we're feeling and what's going on and make suggestions. Thank you.
Thank you. Benjamin?
Good evening, everyone. Oh, that was close. Sorry about that. My name is Benjamin Santillana. I actually am a captain with the Phoenix Fire Department, but that's not really what I want to talk about of who I work for. I grew up in Phoenix, and I live in Phoenix. And the greatest thing about growing up in the city of Phoenix, you get to see a lot of changes. Well, when I was growing up, you always wanted to be a firefighter or a police officer. That was like your whole dream as a kindergartner. But the one thing that I grew up knowing was be a man of your word. So when you spoke to an officer, you spoke to a firefighter, whatever they said was golden. You believed them. And what we have done is trusted the city with our word. When we said, we'll have your back as long as you have ours. And, well, we did what we said. We didn't want to cut anybody. We didn't want people to lose their jobs. So we as a group said, we will take concessions. And it's so funny because my son the other day came up to me and said, hey, Dad, you owe me $20. And I said, do I? He goes, yeah, and I really want to get that game. Can you give my money back? And I said, I'm a man of my word. Here's your $20. All we're asking for is for the city to be of their word. We helped you out. Now it's time to give back to those employees. One good man that used to tell me all the time was, we used to take care of our equipment better than we used to do our employees. But what drives the city is the employees. It's the people that belong to this city. And what's great is that every single person in here just wants to believe in something. We want to believe in what you say because we trust you for doing the best thing for our city. And right now, people want to be safe. People want the fire department there in 4.5 minutes when someone's dying, and we've all been to that call. And they trust me with my word. And that's what I tell them. When I tell them I'll do everything I can for their child, they can guarantee that's what I'll do for their child. And all we ask for, please, is yes, restore concessions to the employees because it's what you promised. It's what you said. So just be a counsel of your word and make our city great again. I mean, growing up in the city, it was, man, the city of Phoenix was the place to be. We've fallen off that map. It's your turn and your job to get us back into that groove, and we trust you with that. We'll take care of you as long as you take care of us. Take care of the residents of Phoenix because we want to be safe. We want the police officers there. We don't want to wait 45 minutes when I've got someone, coming out after me. I want the officers there. We need officers, we need firefighters, but we need employees. We need to give them back their concessions and pay them what they so deserve. I paid my son back because I owed him. I was a man of my word. Please, just be a counsel of your word. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. That was the last speaker card that I have. Going once, twice. Okay. We'll give Councilman Valenzuela the last word. I'll simply, first of all, thank everybody for coming out. Thanks all of our citizens for coming. Thanks to the city staff, a representative from the mayor's office, from Councilwoman Williams' office. We will be doing these hearings through April 19th. And then the next step will be a presentation to the city council on May the 3rd. And as of right now, they're scheduled to take the budget vote on May the 17th. So that's how things will move forward from this point. Councilman Valenzuela.
Thank you, Milton. Actually, I'm going to give to Patrick first, representing Councilwoman Williams' office.
Thank you for having us. Unfortunately, Councilwoman Williams could not be here. She sent me to represent her and her office. And I just want to convey to you from her how important these community meetings really are. Tomorrow, I'll be going with all of these notes and a telephonic briefing to explain exactly what everyone that had a speaking role or decided not to speak but submitted a card. I heard what the comments were, even though you didn't want to get up and speak, and that's perfectly fine. But I will let you know that the councilwoman will hear all of the comments that were made here tonight, and she appreciates your input, certainly, and she will take all of those into consideration. And I know that she would thank everyone for being here to help provide some input into some very important decisions that this city has to make. So thank you for being here.
Thank you, Patrick. And we all know Thelda well enough to know that she's going to go on YouTube and watch this budget hearing there. Again, I want to thank all of you for coming out, for advocating on behalf of yourselves, your family, our community, our city. This budget hearing, and I know that this isn't the first time, probably, well, let me just, is this someone's first budget hearing ever? That's a good thing, right? But we always want to bring neighbors out. There's another budget hearing in a couple of days, Thursday, I believe, at Sunny Slope Community Center, next Tuesday, Via Paz, Far West Phoenix and Gene Deary's neighborhood, and several others. Milton mentioned there are 3 happening tonight. We want to continue to bring people out for these. I think everyone realizes that this is just a proposed budget. And every single time, the budget that is actually adopted by the council, several weeks later, it's a little bit different than this proposed budget. And as far as I'm concerned, you've heard me say this several times before, public input is not a box that simply gets checked. We should be governing based on public input. So I'm hoping that you feel your fingerprints are on that budget that is adopted in a few weeks from now. So please continue to come out, invite your neighbors, your friends, your family. This is incredibly important. Thank you once again for coming out. Drive safely, and God bless.
You have been watching a community budget hearing held recently in Phoenix. For questions, comments, or ideas, please visit phoenix.gov or call 602-262-4800. You can also send feedback through social media by using #PhoenixBudget. This video can also be seen online at phoenix.gov youtube.com/phxtv or youtube.com/City of Phoenix AZ.